Hi all, welcome back to The Average Gal's Garden. I'm Sal, the Average Gal. Today I'm going to take a little bit of a departure from what I have been doing in the past. And it's not really about my garden, it's about a little project that I've been working on in my house for my spice racks. So, garden, I guess you could grow your own herbs. I haven't done that yet, but maybe that's something that I'll work on in, future down the road with the garden in the back. What this was all about was that I have been trying to do clean eating. So I've tried a whole bunch of different types of diets in the past. A lot of you guys who know me know that I've done Nutrisystem and that I had really good success with that actually. This is not a paid promotion for Nutrisystem by any means, but just wanted to point out that it has been helpful in the past for me a couple of times. The downside is once you stop, you tend to get back into your old eating habits. And really, Nutrisystem is about a reduced calorie diet. And over time, my stomach shrank. And if any of you guys remember from years ago when I first did it, all I did at work was complain about how horribly hungry I was and when we were going to be able to break for dinner. My project with clean eating is that I'm cooking more at home, and I am trying to use less processed foods. It is not necessarily by any means a calorie restrictive diet, so you still got to be careful not to gorge on portions. And I found that it was extremely helpful to me, at least for the first 2 weeks. I got a really great meal plan with a shopping list and all that kind of thing off of the internet. Mine happened to be from Pop Sugar, but there's a ton of them out there and some really excellent YouTubers that have great channels for recipes and for how to adopt this lifestyle of clean eating. So back to my project, which is really about, since I'm doing more cooking at home, I really need to get my spices in order. My good friend Jody and I, when I was still living in Vegas, we used to occasionally cook together. So she can relate to this. We used to enjoy doing meals together, and we threw quite a few parties. And anytime we did a big party that we were introducing a new theme to, and we would do a test. So a couple of weeks before the party, we would get together, invite a couple of people over, and we would just have this big crazy cook fest. And back then I had a much bigger house, had a nice island in it. Now we've downsized, so my kitchen is quite small. So when we purchased this house, I gutted the kitchen. On this wall here were my refrigerator, and this is my pantry space. This is a very, very small house, by the way. I do not have a lot of storage in it, but for my husband and myself, we're just two people, or for a small family, it would work fine. But I had custom cabinets done. And my stove used to be on this wall here, my stove, and the microwave. And as that door there goes out to my garage, and then where here the stove and the microwave are is where my refrigerator was, deep in this corner. And if I recall correctly, the door actually swung this way up to where the cabinets were. Also, the cabinets were straight across, and I'm not sure if you can tell in this shot or not, but I have them now diagonally. And there was, at one point in time, the cabinet came out here, boom, it was square, and I also cut this off so that we'd have a better line of sight through the kitchen and into what we use as a family room. So when we redid the kitchen, I had custom cabinets made. And although this is all I have for pantry space, if I open up these bottom cabinets here, you'll see that I did pay extra to get the pull-out drawers. Absolutely love it. Totally recommend it. It's definitely a plus if you can't afford to get your new cabinets with this kind of thing. There's all kinds of products on the market now where you can upgrade to the pull-out shelves. I also have it in this pantry right here, which is not my food because obviously, like I said, there's only the two of us here. But I have my appliances and baking bowls and my blender is there and stuff like that. So I'm going to be redoing this cabinet, a lot of this, because of my new clean eating, I'm finding that I'm using some of my appliances more than others. So for instance, I'm using the food processor quite a bit more now. And so right now, the food processor is up here in this cabinet. And this was, thank you very much, Bernadette, another good friend of mine from Vegas many, many years ago, because I've been here for 15 years, 16, going on 16 years in Florida. She never used it and said, do you want this Cuisinart? And I had a smaller one that was good for just 2 people. So I passed that on to my friend Jody, and Bernadette was kind enough to give me this one. And Bernadette, thank you so much. I am using it a lot now with the new clean eating, because I'm making a lot of sauces and things like that from scratch. And it comes in extremely handy, but it's up so high and it's heavy. So I'm going to redo some of these cabinets, how I've got my stuff laid out, to make it easier for me to access everything. So back to what my project really is about today, and that is my spices. When I did these cabinets, all of this showing you about my cabinets is leading up to this situation right here. So you'll notice that on the left of the stove, I had that very small section right there to try to figure out what to deal with. It goes up as well. And I opted to go with a spice drawer. And part of that is because in general, I've done a lot of cooking, and I was obsessed with herbs and spices for quite a while. So my loving husband, when we were in Vegas for Christmas one year, bought me 2 wooden spice racks and these fabulous little jars that have these stick-on things at the top. And they fit perfectly in this little drawer, and that's really great. But I open the drawer all the time, trying to access the spices now every day, repeatedly. The racks that he had bought me in Vegas, we had mounted underneath the cabinets on the wall, and they were easy to get to there. Here, it's a little more difficult getting them in and out. Plus, they are literally right next to the stove, which is the one thing they say you should never ever do with your herbs and spices. Anyways, I'm going to reuse and recycle my old spice racks. So I mentioned earlier that I was trying to be a little frugal, and I am. However, even though I had a lot of those small cylindrical bottles, they didn't really sit that well in the spice rack. They are a little small, so I did have an expenditure purchasing some new spice bottles. But I got a dozen for $19.99, and I bought 2 boxes. Because I went out and measured the length and then saw what the dimensions were of the jars, and then decided how many I would be able to fit on there, and they do fit perfectly. Here's my jars. So I quite like them, and they've got a nice fairly wide front on them. I think it's 2 3/4 inches or something like that. So it's a lot of good space to put the name of the spice on the front of it. So far, other than the $5 that I spent trying to get the wood glue and the wood putty, I'm trying to use the spray paint I already have, I'm using the racks I already have, and so my only expenditure was the jars. And whatever does not fit, I'll still be able to put stuff in and put it in my fabulous little spice drawer down there. Stuff either overstock or stuff that I don't use that frequently. Maybe some nuts. Maybe this would be a good thing. I store all of those nuts in the refrigerator. So maybe these would be a good option for that. I don't know. We'll see. When we moved here and I had this new drawer that I've been using, I took those little racks and I hung them up in my garage. And I am going to show you that right now. Please don't fill my comment section with how horribly messy my garage is right now. So I will, at some point in time, probably do an Average Gal's Garage where I come in. I have rethought and redone this garage multiple times. So this will just be another iteration eventually of how I have everything laid out. But back to these racks. Here's my spice racks from Vegas. Very nice, just little wooden ones. And when I moved here and I had my new drawer, they were hung on the wall here, right underneath the pegboard. And basically they were dust collectors, for want of a better word. And so I decided that I would remove them and try to recycle them. I had looked online and saw all kinds of beautiful spice racks that I was thinking about getting to hang in the kitchen on the wall. I thought, I've got those wooden ones sitting out in the garage. I'm going to reuse my old spice racks. Okay, so the first problem that I had was how they were mounted on the wall. You can see where I have already put some wood putty in where my contractor had drilled holes based on where the studs were and how they ended up hanging on the wall. And he used square-headed screws. And so it took me a couple of trips to the hardware store to get the correct bits. And in the meantime, in the move, this one actually cracked, I think, in the move. So he did a quick repair since it was only going in the garage. There's the square-headed screw. And when I was trying to pull everything out, I got frustrated and I stripped the head out of that one. So unfortunately, I am not going to be able to remove that screw. But I think I'm okay with that. It's a little blemish, but it's not going to be that big of a deal. I'm an average gal, so I'm okay with it. So I did clean these up. They were very, very dusty, and I wiped them all down, and then I did a light sand. I used some glue on this piece overnight, some wood glue, and I did a clamp in this direction, and then I took a strap and I strapped around this way to pull it all together, and it's set up, it's pretty good there. And then I took some wood putty and filled in, and I filled in a couple of other places. I did the same thing on this one back here. So basically I'm at the point now where I am going to put a new finish. I've already done a light sanding basically on them, but they were pretty much bare wood anyways. There was no paint and there was no real like clear coat or anything on them too much. So I did a light sanding on them, and I am going to lay out some stuff in my garage, and I'm going to spray paint them. So the big question I had to ask myself is, what color did I want? Over here in my horribly dirty garage, I have a paint shelf. On that shelf is a ton of different spray paints, including some paint and primer. So I am going to try to utilize what I have already, and I figure the worst case that'll happen is that I won't like the way it turns out, and then I will go and buy the paint that I wanted. So I just happen to have satin black or flat black, and I think I'm going to opt for that and just have black. So here we go. Yuck. I'll fix it. I just want to point something out to you guys. I was doing this barefoot. And then all the overspray got on the bottom of my feet, and I tracked it in the house. So, word to the wise, put on a pair of old shoes, take them off before you go back inside your house. I had about a half a can, 2 half cans of black. So I finished the one. Now I'm hitting it up with what's left in this one. Overspray. I'm gonna have to do a good sweep out when I'm done of the garage, that's for sure. Don't want that tracking into the house. And there we go. This is the end result, and I brought it into the house instead of sitting in the garage because it's so humid out there. It would just take forever to dry. And with the air on in the house, it's cooler and drier, and hopefully it will dry in the next hour or so and I'll be able to get them up. And just so you guys can see what I was talking about, my jar fits perfectly down inside there. So there's a little bit of room, but the old jars, tons of room, and they just rattled around on there. And I actually got to a point at one time, because I had so many spices, that they were sort of staggered in there. But I think I prefer this cleaner look. So I'm just going to have them all lined up in there. So after they're dry, we'll hang them. And then I go to labeling the jars, adding some spices, and we'll see where we're at. So here we are the second day. I hung the spice racks. And I think I'm going to have to get used to this big bulky thing on the wall, because I'm so used to it just being flat with a couple of little prints hanging there. So I think all in all I like it. The one thing I did not take into account for when I was measuring to hang was the height of the jars between here. So without the jar, I had lots of room in here, and I wasn't taking into account. So it's a little low here. I probably need to move this one up, but I've got big giant holes now in the wall from the toggle bolts that I had to use, because of course there's no stud anywhere where I need it to be. Isn't that the way it always is? So I think I'm just going to live with it for a day, and my husband thinks that it should go up, and I do agree with him. It's just such a pain to do. I'm going to have giant, big, 1/8-inch drill bit holes. I've lost 2 of my toggles now because you can't ever retrieve them out of the wall. So I think I'm just going to just live with it for a couple days, and then probably I'll end up moving it, but maybe not today. So 2 days and a trip to the hardware store, and I finally finished my spice rack project. So here's what the final project, how it all ended up. I did end up raising the one on the top, which is why I had to go to the hardware store. I needed to get some spackle, and I also had to buy some more toggle bolts because I used up the ones that I had already here. So there was an additional $8, I think, to the project that I had to spend to get those supplies. And I like the way it turned out. I'm sort of still getting used to the fact that something is sticking out from the wall here. I come in from the garage and I see something out of the corner of my eye, and it sort of is weird. So I'm getting used to something sticking off the wall. But I really do like the way they turned out. And the only thing that I'm still debating about is the labeling. So my original idea would be that I would print out and stick on like I did here. And I did a test of one, a cumin one, and I did not like the way that it looked because this background is not clear, it's opaque. So I pulled it off, and then I thought, I really like this font, so what I'll do is I will print the font maybe slightly larger, and then I will hold it inside the glass and take a paint pen and sort of trace over it so I could get the font, since my handwriting is horrible. But that didn't work exactly the way that I thought. So then I figured, well, I'll just try to hand write it, which is what I did with the cumin one. And I just do not like my handwriting. It's pretty bad. So I think I will just stick with these pre-printed ones for now and maybe keep my eye out. These are removable. So they'll leave a little bit of residue, but you can get that off with Goo Gone or something like that. And I'll just maybe look for something that has a clear background on it instead. And maybe my P-Touch, if it has, I don't know how many different fonts my P-Touch has, I could take a look at that. Or just look for clear labels instead of these ones that are sort of opaque. But, that's how the whole project turned out. But overall, I really like I really like it. Everything is super easy to reach now, and not so bad. And so if you like the project, give me a thumbs up in the comments below. If you've got any suggestions about what to do with fonts or different types of labeling, leave me a comment. And other than that, I hope you join me next time. Thanks.